You have to listen carefully. There won't be another chance like this. Are you sure you're ready for what comes next?
The crash of metal against marble sliced through the gallows polite, music like a warning no one expected. The ballroom glittered under chandeliers shaped like frozen waterfalls, each crystal catching light the way a camera catches truth, harsh, clean, unforgiving. Guests in tailored suits and shimmering gowns drifted between silent auctions and photo stations. Every movement felt rehearsed, every smile polished for investors and reporters. This was Nathaniel Voss's world, bright on the surface. Hollow beneath, he stood near the stage, posture sharp, suit immaculate. People watched him the way sailors watch a lighthouse expecting guidance, ignoring the cracks in the stone. As CEO of Voss Innovations, he lived inside a fortress of admiration built on philanthropy, donations, and carefully edited stories about his generosity. But tonight, for reasons he couldn't name, the praise felt heavier than the tuxedo on his back. He stepped away from a cluster of board members, craving a moment of silence. That was when it happened. A waitress weaving through the crowd turned toward him at the same time he turned toward her. Her tray of glasses tilted. A single glass slid, then the whole tray followed. The metallic crash rang out sharp, echoing, almost ceremonial. Gasps swept across the room. A few guests stepped back as if the broken pieces carried some kind of contamination. Amara Ellis stood at the center of the noise. Her face held stillness, not fear. Her dark glasses caught the reflection of the shattered tray at her feet. She held her posture straight, one hand near her waist as if listening to the room breathe. Nathaniel opened his mouth to apologize, but the sound stuck. Something about her calm in the middle of his chaos unsettled him. "I'm so sorry," he finally managed. The words felt small. She tilted her head slightly toward his voice. "I heard it. No need to explain." Her tone was steady, respectful, but firm, like someone used to navigating a world that took more than it gave. A manager hurried over, whispering quick instructions, but Amara lifted a hand to stop him. "It's fine," she said. "I can handle it." Nathaniel knelt before she could stop him. The cold marble pressed through his suit pants as he reached toward a fallen glass. A security guard rushed in and blocked his hand. "Sir, please." Nathaniel brushed the guard away. "It's all right." Guests watched, surprised to see a billionaire crouched on the floor. Nathaniel felt their stares, but for the first time in years. He didn't care about optics. Amara crouched as well and moved with careful precision, fingertips tracing the safe paths between the broken pieces. Unlike the guests, she didn't treat the shards like danger. She treated them like facts, and welcome, sharp, but manageable. He studied her movements, suddenly aware of the world she moved through without sight. Humility and strength radiated from her in a way the gala's luxury couldn't imitate. "What's your name?" he asked. She paused. "Amara Ellis." Nathaniel searched for a reason to stay there on the marble. "Let me help you." She straightened. The room's lights framed her like a silhouette carved from resolve. "No," she said softly. "You've done enough." Her words weren't harsh, but they cut. Nathaniel rose slowly, feeling the imbalance between their worlds. His empire could control public image, markets, entire districts, but not this single moment with a woman who refused to be small. "Please," he said again, unsure why he cared so deeply. "Let me make this right." Amara lifted her face toward him. "Mr. Voss," she said, having recognized his voice with startling accuracy. "Some things don't need fixing. They just need truth." She turned away before he could reply, walking with calm steps toward the service hallway, leaving the broken tray and him behind. For the first time in years, Nathaniel Voss felt something he couldn't calculate, or command. He felt shaken, and he wasn't sure why. The image of the fallen tray kept flashing in Nathaniel's mind like a warning light he could not shut off. In the high-rise office where decisions shaped markets, the headquarters felt colder than usual. Glass walls reflected Nathaniel Voss's polished image back at him, sharp suit, steady posture, eyes trained for control. Yet beneath that surface, something had shifted. The echo from the gala, that metallic ring slicing through music and applause, haunted him with quiet accuracy. He told himself it was concern. He told himself it was curiosity. But the truth was simpler and heavier. He could not stop thinking about the blind waitress who stood up straighter after dropping a tray than most executives did after signing a mid-deal. Her dignity unsettled him. Her refusal to accept help unsettled him even more. Nathaniel sat alone in his private conference room, not for meetings, for search. He opened files normally used to track risk, fraud, and internal threats. Now he used them to trace a single worker from a single gala shift. He typed keywords, scrolled through staff rosters, checked time-stamped footage. Tools of power turned in a strangely personal direction. A part of him recognized the arrogance in doing this. Another part pressed forward anyway. His assistant, Marlene, stepped inside with a stack of reports. "The board moved the quarterly review to next week," she said. "They expect you focused." "I am focused," Nathaniel replied, though he barely heard himself. Marlene glanced at the screens. "You're digging into event staff now." Her voice held caution. "Sir, this isn't your lane." He dismissed her concern with a gesture, but her words lingered like a quiet accusation. It wasn't his lane. It wasn't his right. He knew that. And still he searched. The footage slowed at the moment of impact. Nathaniel watched the tray slip, watched the glasses fall in a cascading arc, watched her hands reach out too late to catch them. He remembered the soft gasp from the guests. He remembered her steady voice saying, "I'm fine," even as she knelt to find each shard by touch. That moment replayed again and again, as if the universe insisted he examine it. His advisors called him in for updates. "We need to talk strategy for the investor summit," one said. "There's worry you're distracted." Nathaniel nodded without listening. Something in him was pulling in a new direction, away from numbers and applause, toward the truth behind that echoing drop. At last, a name appeared in the file. Amara Ellis, temporary hire, local resident, assigned to server rotations. He read the name twice. Then another discovery caught him off guard. Amara worked mornings at a small café on the city's worn-down east side, a place known more for community than profit, a place far from the gala lights where he lived his public life. The contrast struck him with investigative clarity. Her world, powered by service and quiet strength. His world, powered by money and public image. He felt the weight of that divide, heavy as steel for the first time in years. Nathaniel closed his laptop before finishing his corporate agenda. He stood by the window, watching the city stretch out beneath him. Then he made a decision that broke every pattern he had lived by. He would go to that cafe, but he would go unseen. And find out who she was, without the shield of his name, without the armor of his wealth, without the applause that usually followed him. He stepped away from the glass, the echo of the fallen tray still ringing in his mind as he planned his discreet visit. The bell above the cafe door gave a tired, uneven ring so small and cracked that it felt like the opposite of everything Nathaniel Voss was used to. He stepped inside as if entering another world. Gone were the polished floors and spotless glass walls of his corporate towers. Here, the air carried the warm smell of roasted beans and old wood. Chairs scraped gently as neighbors greeted each other by name. A radio hummed a soft tune in the corner. Nothing matched, yet everything belonged. For a moment, Nathaniel stood still, letting the simplicity press against him. This cafe wasn't built on image. It was built on trust, routine, and community elements. He often studied in business but rarely felt. And then he saw her. Amara Ellis moved behind the counter with a calm, practiced rhythm. Her hand skimmed the edge of the counter to track her place. Her other hand found cups, filters, and the cash drawer with certainty. She didn't rush. She didn't stumble. She moved like someone who had memorized the world through patience instead of sight. Customers greeted her with warmth, not pity. She returned each greeting with a steady voice that carried quiet authority. The difference struck Nathaniel harder than he expected. In his world, respect followed wealth. Here, respect followed character. He approached the counter wearing a plain jacket and a baseball cap, an attempt to look ordinary. But nothing about him felt ordinary, not even to himself. He rehearsed a simple order in his head, as if ordering coffee were a negotiation. Amara turned slightly, sensing his presence the way she sensed the shift of air. "Good morning," she said. "What can I get for you?" Her voice was steady, gentle, and unmistakably confident. Nathaniel tried to speak, but his throat tightened. He cleared it quietly. "A black coffee, please." "Sure," she said, reaching for the pot with accuracy that came from years of repetition. "Haven't heard your voice here before." He tensed. She couldn't see him, yet he felt exposed. "I'm new in the area," he said. The lie tasted small and safe. Amara tilted her head, reading something he didn't realize he was revealing. "Everyone's new at some point." She slid the cup forward. "But your shoes don't sound like someone who walks this neighborhood much." Nathaniel lowered his gaze, surprised by how sharp her intuition was. His shoes polished, expensive even when dressed down, betrayed him. She continued, "You hesitated before ordering. People who come here often don't. They already know what brings them comfort." He swallowed. "Maybe I'm still learning." She gave a faint smile. "Learning is good. This place teaches you if you let it." As she moved to help the next customer, he watched her navigate the space with ease. Each step was precise. Each gesture carried purpose. She didn't need eyes to see people clearly. A memory flickered. Mara at the gala. The crash of the tray. The metallic ring echoing like a strike on his conscience. Her quiet dignity after the fall had stayed with him, replaying every night like a question he hadn't answered. Now, standing in her world, that question grew heavier. When the crowd thinned, Nathaniel tried again. "Thank you," he said softly, "for the coffee and for the—" Earlier, she paused. Her head turned slightly, as if focusing on the shape of his voice. "Earlier," she repeated. "You mean the gala?" Nathaniel froze. The cap, the jacket, the lowered voice, none of it mattered. She recognized him not by sight, but by rhythm, tone, breath. "I knew it," she said quietly. "The rhythm of your voice, it's the same one that said, 'Are you okay?' after the tray hit the floor." Her words felt like a spotlight cutting through his disguise. She faced him directly, her blindness making her gaze strangely more piercing. "So tell me," Amara said, her voice calm but firm, "who are you really?" The truth landed between them like a spotlight snapping on bright, sudden, and impossible to hide under. Nathaniel Voss had rehearsed his confession a dozen times, but when he finally spoke his name aloud inside the small cafe, the air changed. The quiet hum of soft music halted. 2 customers froze mid. Even the old ceiling fan seemed to slow, as if listening. Nathaniel felt every eye press against him, a strange reversal for a man used to standing on stages. The cafe was small, humble, and warm, but in this moment it felt like a courtroom. No judge, no jury, only Amara Ellis standing with calm posture, her hands lightly touching the counter, her face steady and unreadable. She didn't smile, she didn't gasp, she didn't stumble through praise like so many others did when they learned who stood before them. Instead, she tilted her head, listening to the shape of his breath. "So you're the one everyone talks about," she said. Her voice was even cool. "The man whose name fills the screens in your towers." A flush crawled up Nathaniel's neck. He expected curiosity, maybe admiration, not this piercing clarity. Amara continued, "Why would someone like you come here, to this tiny place?" To me, the question cut deeper than she knew. Nathaniel's father had always said that image was armor. The Voss empire wasn't built on kindness, it was built on managing what the world believed. His father donated to causes only when cameras were pointed. He spoke warm words in public, then acted cold in private. Nathaniel had grown up watching the difference between truth and display, and he had followed the same pattern without realizing it. Tonight, standing before a woman who couldn't see his expensive suit or polished reputation, he felt unmasked. "I came because I wanted to apologize," he said, "and because I wanted to understand you better." A single eyebrow lifted, not in surprise, but in doubt. "Understand me?" Amara echoed. "People don't study me unless they want something, and they don't show up twice unless they're chasing a story." Her words were gentle, but they hit with precision. She reached for a cup on the counter, tapping its rim softly. The hollow sound floated between them like a warning bell. "This cafe," she said, "doesn't run on headlines. It runs on honesty. People come here to be real. Can you do that, Mr. Voss?" Nathaniel swallowed. He wasn't sure he could. Not here, not with her. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "I'm not trying to use you, I swear." "But you already did," Amara replied quietly. "You used your power to search for me. You used your name to walk into my world without asking if you were welcome." She paused, letting silence sharpen the truth. "You may not see it, but that's a kind of story too." The room stilled again. Nathaniel felt exposed under an invisible light, a light Amara didn't need eyes to command. She turned her face toward him, steady and unwavering. "Tell me something honest, Nathaniel Voss," she said. "Are you here for me or for the story of being here?" The first headline hit the city like a storm siren. "Billionaire caught slipping into unknown caf." Nathaniel Voss saw the news alert flash across the screen in his office. But it was the photo beneath it that froze him, the grainy shot of him standing near the cafe door, half-turned, the hood of his jacket not low enough to hide his face. The image looked harmless, almost ordinary, yet he knew what came next. His world never allowed ordinary, it only allowed angles, narratives, and leverage. Within minutes, more headlines bloomed across the internet like fast-spreading mold. Some called it a secret outreach effort. Others hinted at a mysterious romance with a local worker. None of them said her name, but he knew they would find it soon. Across the city, in the small cafe with its mismatched chairs and warm hum of community, Amara Ellis heard the whispers before someone finally told her. A co-worker placed a tablet gently in her hands and read the words aloud. She listened without changing expression, yet her posture stiffened just enough for the room to sense a quiet storm gathering inside her. The customers, usually relaxed, grew awkward. They greeted her more softly than usual, as if they feared adding weight to her day. Amara disliked pity just as much as she disliked empty praise. Both felt like cages by noon. Nathaniel's PR team gathered around him like a fire crew around a burning building. Screens displayed videos analyzing his mysterious visit. Reporters speculated about power imbalances, hidden motives, and the billionaire's new moral rebrand. His chief strategists leaned in. "We can get ahead of this. We frame it as part of your inclusive initiative, a humanizing angle, a bridge across class lines." Nathaniel's jaw clenched. "She isn't an angle," the strategist continued anyway. "If we signal it's a respectful friendship, harmless and inspiring, the heat will fade. People like clean stories." Nathaniel, he remembered the metallic echo of the fallen tray from the gala. The sound had been sharp, honest, unavoidable. This moment felt like its opposite, soft, contaminated, wrapped in public noise. Nathaniel walked out of the meeting without answering. His own feelings were becoming clearer, but the world insisted on twisting them into spectacle. At the cafe, the damage was growing. A photographer waited outside, pretending to check his phone. A gossip blogger entered and bought a cup of tea he didn't drink. Customers apologized to Amara for what she must be going through, as if she had invited the storm herself. A co-worker found a discarded tabloid page on the sidewalk. Amara's face sketched from memory beside exaggerated rumors. When she touched the sheet, her fingers brushed across the warped drawing. The paper crackled under her grip, thin and fragile, a distorted truth in physical form. She dropped it into the trash. That evening, Nathaniel pushed through the cafe's back entrance, trying to avoid the crowd outside. Amara stood by the counter. Calm but distant. She did not smile when she heard his steps. Her chin lifted slightly, her way of meeting his presence head-on. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "I didn't expect this to happen." "You didn't expect it," she replied, "because you live in a world where mistakes vanish when money or influence steps in. But I live in a world where attention can steal things from you: privacy, peace, dignity. And today, it did." Nathaniel felt the words hit harder than anything the media had thrown at him. "I can fix this." "You can't," she said. "Not the way you think." Her voice was steady, but her hands were folded tightly in front of her, holding firm, like a person bracing against a wind that refused to stop. "I didn't ask to become part of your story," she added. "And I won't let your presence turn my life into a stage." She inhaled, slow and controlled. Then, with the dignity that had drawn him in from the start, Amara delivered the line that cut through the room like a clean blade. "I cannot keep seeing you if your world endangers my dignity." And with that, the space between them shifted, quiet, heavy, and unresolved. The first morning Nathaniel showed up at the cafe before sunrise. No cameras followed him, only the weight of his own name. The air outside the small brick cafe was cool and still. Soft light crept across the sidewalk, revealing a line of cardboard boxes waiting to be sorted for the community pantry. Nathaniel Voss, once photographed under chandeliers and luxury banners, now stood in plain clothes with his sleeves rolled up. The contrast struck him harder than the cold. Here, there was no applause, only the quiet truth of work. Inside, the cafe hummed with early activity. Volunteers talked in low voices. Someone dragged a chair across the floor. The smell of roasted beans drifted through the air with none of the polish of his corporate lobby, just simple warmth. Nathaniel had rejected every PR script his team tried to hand him in the days after the headlines. Investors called him unfocused. His board called him reckless. But none of that mattered now. He was trying to understand something deeper than profit sheets. Amara stood near the counter, listening more than watching. She wasn't scheduled to work this early, yet she came anyway. She wanted proof, not of strength or wealth, but sincerity. She greeted the volunteers by name. When she walked, her cane tapped lightly against the edge of a table, marking space with calm confidence. Nathaniel noticed the respect she received, not because of who she was connected to, but because of who she had always been. He started with simple tasks: unpacking boxes, stacking canned goods, sweeping corners. None of it was glamorous. Every movement felt like an apology. The volunteers offered polite nods but little trust. In their eyes, he might still be a powerful man chasing a story. Amara stood near him as he wiped down a table. Her voice was steady. "Most people who come here want something in return," she said. "Attention, praise, a way to look generous." Nathaniel paused. "I'm not here for attention." "That's what they all say," she replied, not cruelly, but truthfully. Her words pressed on him like a test he couldn't cheat later. She led him through the storage room, where shelves were half full and donations ran low. "People depend on this place," she said. "When the stories about us broke, some donors backed away. They didn't want to be connected to scandal." The guilt in his chest deepened. "I'm sorry," he said. "Don't be sorry," she answered. "Be responsible." The sentence landed with the sharpness of a verdict, yet there was no contempt in her tone, only expectation. Hours passed. Sweat dampened his collar. His hands were steady but slow. Amara drifted beside him, listening to his movements. She asked him questions with the calmness of someone checking the foundation of a fragile bridge. "Why were you really looking for me that day? What were you hoping to fix? If no one ever knew you were here, would you still come back?" Each question peeled back a part of him he had never inspected. His father's old lessons flickered in memory: control the story, protect the image, never expose the weakness behind the wealth. But those rules felt like rust now. Finally, while restocking a shelf, he spoke plainly. "I don't know how to fix the damage I've done, but I want to stop living in a world where everything is staged. You showed me how empty that world is." Amara listened. Then came the quiet moment that ended all pretense. She stepped closer, lifted her hand, and placed it gently over his. Her touch was light, steady, intentional, like someone reading truth through silence. He didn't move. He didn't speak. His posture told the story for him. Shoulders lowered, breath calm, ego stripped down. She felt the change, but she also felt the uncertainty still wrapped around him. Amara withdrew her hand slowly. "You're different," she said, "but I don't know if it's enough yet." Her words hung in the air, soft, honest, unresolved, and Nathaniel understood. The trial wasn't over. It was only beginning. The first photo hit the internet like a dropped match in dry grass. That it showed Nathaniel Voss in a plain apron, wiping down a cafe table at dawn. Another showed him carrying boxes toward a food pantry door. They were simple moments, honest moments, but leaked from a confidential folder inside his company. Within hours, tabloids twisted them into bright, mocking headlines about a performative billionaire seeking sympathy. The contrast was brutal. Nathaniel had done the work quietly, trying to separate truth from spectacle. But the world didn't believe in quiet anymore. It believed in noise. Inside the cafe, the morning crowd buzzed with uneasy whispers. Phones lit up like tiny flashbulbs. Amara Ellis could not see the screens, but she could hear the tone sharp, frantic, and contaminated with suspicion. She stood behind the counter, hands resting on the edge like an anchor. Nathaniel stepped in, breath uneven. He had been running, though he rarely ran anywhere. Amara, he said softly. She turned her head toward his voice, jaw tight. I heard the reactions. People think I'm part of your campaign. It isn't a campaign, he said. Those photos weren't meant for anyone. Yet somehow they were sent to everyone. She took a slow breath, trying to keep her voice steady. Do you understand what this does to me again? I'm being treated like a story people can twist for entertainment. He closed his eyes for a moment. Someone on my board leaked them to undermine me. They think I'm distracted. They want me controlled. And now I'm the collateral, she asked. The words hit him harder than she realized. Collateral, the one thing he never wanted her to become. He reached out, but stopped himself before touching her arm. The silence between them was heavy, filled with unspoken fear. The cafe felt smaller, as if the walls had leaned in to listen. I'm trying, he said. I'm changing. I didn't stage anything. I know, but the world doesn't. And your world is bigger than mine, louder than mine. Her voice wavered but did not break. You have power. I have to protect my dignity. The balance isn't fair, Nathaniel. Her words were simple, but they pierced straight through his defenses. In that moment, he remembered his father teaching him, long ago, that narratives could be bent like wire. Make people see what benefits you, the old man used to say. But Amara had forced Nathaniel to confront the truth. Bending narratives always bent people too, and he was done bending anyone that afternoon. Nathaniel walked into the boardroom of Voss Industries with no entourage, no rehearsed speech. The room was a fortress of polished glass and calculated smiles. The board members studied him like a problem that had grown messy. We need damage control. One director snapped. You will appear with her. Show unity. Use this opportunity. No, Nathaniel said. His voice didn't rise, but its calmness cut deeper than shouting. Another director leaned forward. Then you're jeopardizing shareholder confidence. I won't use her, he said. Not for image, not for profit, not for any of this. So what's your proposal? The chairman asked. Nathaniel set his resignation letter on the table. The page looked almost small compared to the weight of the room, but it symbolized something larger, a clean break from everything that had trapped him. If protecting her means stepping down, he said, then I step down. The room fell into stunned silence, a whisper of shifting suits, a scrape of a pen someone dropped. Shock rippled across faces that rarely showed emotion. Without another word, Nathaniel left the room, walked straight through the lobby, and out of the company that had shaped and confined most of his life. As he stepped into the afternoon sun, he felt something he had not felt in years, air that belonged to him, not to his reputation. That evening, in the quiet of the cafe after closing time, Amara turned on the small radio near the register. A news host announced, with almost breathless disbelief, that Nathaniel Voss had resigned from his own company. Amara froze, her hand hovered above the counter, her breath stilled. Her heart, steady and cautious for so long, finally shook. She understood then fully, painfully, the depth of what he had given up, and nothing in the cafe's quiet evening felt the same again. A cold wind pushed against the cafe's front door as if testing the strength of the new life waiting inside Nathaniel. Voss stepped through that door with no title to protect him, no board members to impress, and no cameras trained on his face. Only the low hum of morning conversation greeted him. It was the same cafe where everything began, yet it felt different, now stripped of the power that once followed his shadow. The smell of warm bread drifted through the room. A few customers glanced up, not with awe but with curiosity. They had seen the headlines. They had seen his fall, but none of them seemed eager to judge. The cafe had its own quiet rules, dignity first, assumptions later. Behind the counter, Amara Ellis paused mid-motion, listening to the subtle shift in air that always came when someone familiar entered. Her fingers searched for the edge of a tray, steadying herself. Nathaniel, she said softly. Not a question, a recognition. He walked closer, careful not to take up more space than he needed. That was new for him, moving with intention, not authority. I didn't want to stay away, he said. Not anymore. Not now. She faced him fully, her posture straight, her chin lifted. She carried the quiet strength of someone who had learned early to survive storms without letting them scar her spirit. Yet there was also caution, the kind that comes from being turned into a headline against one's will. What do you want now that you're not the man in charge of a giant tower? She asked. The question cut through any remaining shields he might have had. Nathaniel took a breath. He didn't reach for her hand. He didn't offer comforting words. He simply stood in the truth. I want a life that isn't built on image, he said. I want something real. With you, if you can believe that. Even a little. The room seemed to fall quieter, as if the walls themselves were waiting for her response. Amara's fingers traced the handle of a ceramic mug, simple, unpolished, with a tiny crack near the rim. It was a mug she had used for years. To her, it was a symbol of things that lasted, not because they looked perfect, but because they were cared for. You've changed, she said. Not in the way people pretend, in the way that costs something. Her voice held no praise, only truth. Nathaniel nodded. Losing the company wasn't the price. Letting go of who I thought I had to be, that was the cost. For a moment, she said nothing. Then she stepped from behind the counter, tapping lightly with her cane until she stood close enough to sense his breath. And now, she said. Now, he replied, I want to build a life that doesn't need an audience. A faint smile touched her lips, small but full of meaning. Amara turned toward the door, lifted her cane, and said quietly, walk me home. The mug trembled between their fingertips, an ordinary piece of clay holding the weight of everything they had become. Months had passed since the storms that once chased them. No reporters waited outside the cafe. No shareholders whispered. No cameras guessed motives. Nathaniel and Amara now moved through quieter days, building a small community foundation that focused on food programs, tutoring, and safe gathering spaces. There were no billboards advertising their work, no glossy photos, just steady progress and the soft hum of real service. Nathaniel embraced the anonymity. It felt like breathing fresh air after years inside a glass box. Amara guided the work with sharp insight and calm leadership. Her instincts, shaped by years of navigating the world through sound and truth, made their programs human and honest. Still, there were moments when old doubts tried to return. Was he doing this for impact or redemption? Was she trusting him fully or only waiting to see if he would break again? These questions surfaced on quiet mornings when the foundation filled with volunteers. The contrast between his former empire and this small, cluttered office reminded him of everything he once relied on: power, applause, image. Now none of that existed, and strangely, he didn't miss it. One afternoon, while preparing supplies for a neighborhood event, he paused. Amara, standing beside him, folded donation bags with gentle precision. She sensed his stillness before he spoke. I keep thinking about who I used to be, he admitted. And who is that? She asked. A man shaped by mirrors, he said. I didn't know who I was without them. Amara nodded slowly. Mirrors show shape, not truth. Her words settled deep. During their next community meeting, Nathaniel reached for a ceramic mug on a crowded counter. Amara reached at the same moment. Their hands touched over the handle, soft, accidental grounding. The mug was plain, slightly chipped, nothing special. Yet, in that moment, it became a symbol of the life they had built. Simple, steady, honest. He looked at her, and she lifted her face toward the sound of his breath. I thought you challenged me because you doubted me, he said. No, she answered softly. I challenged you because I believed you could be more than what the world expected of you. The mug balanced between them, warm and steady. Nathaniel finally understood. Love wasn't about being seen in the light of greatness. It was about being known in the quiet. Amara smiled, sensing the shift in him. Love doesn't need eyes, she said. It needs honesty. And in that calm, ordinary moment, they stepped fully into the life they had both chosen, a life built not on performance, but on truth that stayed even when the world stopped watching.